Welcome to the Indian Gaming Association's The New Normal webcast. My name is Lisa Johnson. I'm the conference manager for the Indian Gaming Trade Show and Convention. It is my pleasure to introduce Victor Rocha, conference chairman of the Indian Gaming Association.
Thank you, Lisa, and good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. I'm in California, so it's still morning for me. 10 o'clock is kind of when I wake up. Welcome to The New Normal, your go-to source for insightful discussions on the gaming industry and critical issues affecting Native American tribes across the United States. I'm Victor Rocha. My co-host is Jason Giles, Executive Director of the Indian Gaming Association and proud graduate of West Point. In today's webinar, we're talking to our dear friend James Sieva of the California Nations Indian Gaming Association about the latest existential threat to tribal gaming in California. And when I say this without hyperbole or for effect. This is actually very true. Sweepstakes gambling and DFS 2.0. I'd also like to point out that we have turned off the comments today because this isn't that kind of session. This is, I did it because, I want to focus on the issue. And then also I did it to drive all those people in Sweepstakes and DFS crazy. So if they want to comment, put it in an email, send it to me and I'll delete it there. Anyhow, welcome everyone. This is going to be a really good James, let's jump right into it. Let me tell you how I got here. And what I mean got here is by recognizing that the tribes are under assault in California. We just 2 years ago we had the fight with the FanDuel and DraftKings and the Sports Betting Association. And then last year we had a comical attempt at I don't know what the heck that was, but then again, it's like now we have this other one, and let's start with the obvious. You have sweepstakes gambling, and it's this new form of they say it's social gambling. It's on the internet, excuse me, it's in the app stores as social gambling. But, let me tell you a little story to how I got here and how I got so worked up. So, when we were at G2E, I went to a mixer. I went to a mixer and, I really don't go to these things much anymore. I find them just boring. I don't really have a lot to talk to anyone about. But I get it. So anyway, I went to this one because a friend was there. So I decided I could get out of my room, and I went there, and and everyone there, was talking about sweepstakes gaming. And as the editor of Pachanga.net, I knew it, but you know what? It was like you've seen the movie Blade. You ever seen the movie Blade? And the first scene is all of a sudden the guys open up, it's a party and everybody's there. And then about halfway through the scene, the guy realizes that everybody's vampires. And that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, I realized everybody was talking about sweepstakes. Everyone was talking about new startups. And there was a lot of people there that I respected and admired, people that I know and I like. And then there were the others, they were people that had just had no business being in our industry. The same ones that ran from industry to industry, and usually they're a dollar late and a day behind, and yet here they were. And I realized I was in a room full of vampires, and I was waiting for the blood to start shooting out of the ceiling and stuff like that to save me. So I left before the blood started shooting out of the ceilings. But it was just really shocking to me that I said, okay, we have a problem here. What's going on? And then I went back and researched and realized that I had really missed this threat. I had really missed the severity of this threat to Indian country. So when did you find out, James, that it was as big as it is?
So we've been keeping an eye on Daily Fantasy and DFS 2.0 and Sweepstakes and whatever other title they're putting on it, today. Going back to the end of 2023. As you mentioned, California tribes were really busy with sports betting. We were in the middle of a huge initiative fight. Coming off of that, we had our eye on it, but we probably weren't as paying as much attention to it as we should have. And then the good old California legislator made sure that we had our radar back on it when a senator requested an opinion on the legality of it from the Attorney General Rob Bonta. And the Attorney General, in remarkable difference to the requests made by tribes for the last 15 years on regulations for the card rooms, turned around and immediately started taking comments for new regulations around DFS. And so we were shocked by the timeline. We were like, we've been advocating for regulations for this other illegal form of gaming for a decade plus, and you haven't moved on it. No AG has moved on it. And now, at the drop of a hat, you're trying to promulgate regulations in a matter of months. And so that really caught our attention. We were fortunate to have the AG come to the DNIGA candidate forum in December of 2023, mentioned to them, talked to him in person, made sure our letter got in there. So our comments on the legality of this was at the AG's office, and that was in January of this year. The Attorney General has still yet to promulgate those regs. So I think that's probably a good sign. I think if it had gone fast, it would have been bad for tribes. But now that he's getting pushback, I think he's thinking about this a lot more deeply. But just to clarify, in California, DFS is illegal. It happens. The states allows it to happen, but it is illegal. There's no other way around it. We can talk about the different forms of daily fantasy and player versus player versus a group or whatever, pick'ems and all that. But the fact alone is, according to the California Constitution, daily fantasy of any type is illegal, and there's no way around that. Now they're trying to find these nuances and things like that, but with everything happening right now, they have made sure that the radar of California tribes is on them. So this is going to be another big push for us. And still, we continue to work on sports betting. We just had a great panel at G2E talking about what the future of that's going to look like in California. We're busy here in California, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. I firmly believe, California is the engine that drives tribal gaming. Just the number of operators here, the number of tribes, the number of citizens in California, the size of the market. That's just reality. So how this turns out here will have mass effects across Indian country. But I am more than confident that California tribal leadership is up to the fight again.
Well, Jay, look they're mocking you in your face. They're mocking us in our face. You know what I mean? Listen, they're unregulated, they're untaxed, and they don't do KYC. If you go to the App Store right now, you just have to be 18 years old. It's 21 years old to be in gambling. Mm-hmm. So this is gambling on training wheels. This is, it's a bunch of lawyers that are spitting in our face and looking at gray areas and thinking that we're not going to act. But listen, the end game is exactly what happened in fantasy sports. The DFS companies became a big players in sports betting. This strategy is now they want to come in and become the big players in online gaming. So they want to get between us and our customers. Again, this is about erasure. This is about legalities. Again, unregulated, untaxed, and then it's all a bunch of lawyers who are sitting in a little room saying, oh, this is what we can do. And you know what? And look, we've seen this before. They're going to try to change the rules. When you go after them, oh my God, we create all these jobs. I was just at my kids' little league over there, and I saw this fire truck that Fliff and a Prize Picks paid for it. Oh, I forgot. That wasn't those guys. It was my tribe. You know what I mean? So these guys don't pay money into the system. This is when we talk about cannibalization, this is what we're talking about. In companies like this that take money out of California and unregulated, untaxed, and some say, we could have, look, I don't believe it's money laundering, but my issue is underage gambling. You know what I mean? And these guys are saying squarely at the next generation. It's fun, it's coins. But then, they're saying, oh, only a small percentage pay for it. It's free to play. Nobody's paying, only a small percentage pay for it. Well, then listen, cut out that small percentage and we don't have a problem, right? Cut out the money. But you know what? This is something that is not going to end well for them. I think, I'm going on a rant. Let me get back to my notes, okay? Because I'm pretty angry about
James,
this.
just to
Go
be
ahead,
clear,
Jason. You're the lawyer. You're the lawyer.
Well, just to be clear, in California, because other states have sent cease and desist letters and they've retreated fairly quickly without much of a fight. But why what about California? I mean, why haven't they done a cease and desist letter, or what are they? Do you get the sense
I
that
mean,
they're trying to
I,
help you
I,
guys?
I think unfortunately this has kind of been the status quo for
California,
leadership in California for like either whether it's the governor's administration, whether it's the AG. If there's a
right?
new form of gaming that the public responds positive to, they'll not look at the legal area, the regulatory portion of it. They're like, oh, the public likes this, we're going to push it, or we're just going to ignore it, which I think is as bad as them advocating for it, because then it allows them to get into the market, to establish themselves in a market, and then when we have to come and do the work of the AG for him or herself, which we've done multiple times, it's that much harder to remove them from the market once they're already established there. But I think again, it's just something that's not on the AG's radar, or wasn't until the end of last year, and I think that's allowed them to kind of, ingrain themselves into the California customer kind of sphere of gaming opportunities as it is. But I wish I could tell you exactly why they haven't taken an action, why they haven't sent those letters. But I don't have an answer for it. It would make our lives and our jobs a lot easier.
Right.
Well, you know what? You have these companies now that are going, it's still a nascent industry. You know what I mean? I mean, when you look at VGW, they're being sued around. I think we're looking at around the country, people are starting to recognize this threat. You have in Michigan, they've passed a law. I think we need to start sharing resources with some of these other states and take a look at how this is contained. But then listen, this isn't only our issue. I've created a 5-story arc from here the next 5 weeks, talking about these issues with a lot of the industry. We're bringing in the AGA. We're bringing in next week, we have our good friend Jeremy Kuden from the SBA going to come in and talk about why that's a threat. After that, the AGA, we're going to have some regulators coming in. And then, after that, we have some pretty bigger guns coming after that too. So, when we're done with this issue will be defined, and we will know that it is the existential threat that I say it is. And you're absolutely right. Their whole point is to park into California and wait till it's legal, and then they come in with their database. And we've seen this scenario before, and I can tell you right now, it's not going to fly. You know what I mean?
Well,
Go ahead, Jason.
well,
I
I
sound
mean,
like
and James, has there been any coordination yet with other state tribal gaming associations? And I'd like to share your optimism, Victor. I'm pretty sure you're right, but you don't watch sports on Sunday. If you watched any NFL games, they're advertising. There's celebrities out there advertising social casinos now.
that
And
doesn't
I
make it
just
right.
know it's wrong. Yeah. And it's interesting. One of the articles I've read, maybe we can post those articles for folks, but they were trying to compare, to the Monopoly game at McDonald's,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
which
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
hilarious. I'm going to compare it. That game is, first of all, there was big time corruption involved in all of that.
Right. Oh, that's pretty funny. Yeah. You know what? That's
the
the argument they used yesterday on their
right.
podcast or the day before, which is the McDonald's argument, which
Yeah.
doesn't really hold water.
Right.
You know?
I mean, but have we, I mean, it's something we'll focus on at our trade show in April,
Yeah.
James.
Oh yeah. Oh
we
yeah.
got to get
But look
through
at the
the
bottom line. It's
selection.
untaxed, Jason. It's
Yeah.
untaxed. It's
Right.
unregulated, and they're coming and taking money from we don't know who. They don't
Right.
do KYC. They say they do, but you know what? They're lobbyists. They're not lawyers. They're not regulators. They're investors. You know what I mean? They have an incentive to say all this stuff. When was the last time, an investor told you the truth? Especially about this industry. Like we know there's a lot of good investors out there. So
Right.
I'm just
But James,
kind of
any coordination yet, with other
No,
states?
not so much, but that's a really good idea, and that's something that
Mhm.
like CNIGA should definitely follow up on. We just did a joint panel with a group of different gaming associations. We had Minnesota. Who else do we have? I'm blanking now. Oh, Washington, and
Minnesota,
Oklahoma.
Washington, Oklahoma, and
Oklahoma.
California.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that would be a great idea, because I know this is happening in other states, and like you mentioned, other states, their legislature has just been like, okay, this is illegal, we're going to shut you guys down. So that'd be a good idea, because like I mentioned, we sent our letter in from CNIGA to the AG's office. We're pending that opinion. We are sending another letter this week, actually, to Google, because now all those apps of all those companies you mentioned are now in the Google store, and we're like, you guys are advertising illegal operations in the Google store.
Mhm.
It's not just a technical violation of law; it is a full violation of law. So we're making sure that they're aware of that. We're going to do the same thing with the Android store, with the Apple store, because they're the longer they're here, the more entrenched they get. And just like Victor said, they don't care about Californians. They don't care about protecting underage gaming. All they care about is the revenues, the bottom line that they can pull out of the state. That's it. That's it for them. They don't care if this is damaging, if it has negative effects to anybody, if it's illegal, which it clearly is. I mean, it's baffling how far they've got already without any big pushback from the state. But like I mentioned again, this is gonna something that's falling on the tribes again. But we will stand up and protect our sovereignty every day of the week. Every day of the week. So if they want another, I hate to use the word another fight. I mean, we're always ready.
I'll use it.
But
I'll use it.
I know you will,
I-
Victor.
Yeah. By the way, like I said, Jason, I started a war and I forgot to invite everybody. So,
Well-
welcome.
Well, to the extent, and this is something as a national organization, we'll get going, but to the extent that our tribal attorney generals and general counsels need to start getting actively engaged.
Yeah, Jason, and that's why, it's nationwide, but that's why I decided to focus on California. You know what I mean? Let's put our eyes, because the same things that are happening in California are happening in the rest of the country. And I think with California, we'll have a strong reaction for the tribes, which will show the rest of the country how you react to these type of threats, and I'm not using that word lightly. I really feel that these are again, unregulated, untaxed, and they are here and they're in California, and they're doing celebrities. That's what they do, but again, the taxation isn't there. Where's the money going? And the strategy right now is they're thumping their chests with the analysts and with the money people, saying, listen, we're coming in here, we're growing. They're looking for more money to expand into California. And I'm telling you right now, by the end of this 5 session arc, we will have a lot more clarity on what these people are doing and where their weaknesses are and how we're going to stop them. But James is absolutely right. This falls squarely on the tribes again. You know what I mean? The tribes have to react, because if they don't, then no one will. And again, we're used to this stuff. So, we thought it was over, but here we are as a new breed. And listen, I was in a vampire party. You know what I mean? I was in a party full of vampires. And what's funny, because what it is in the industry is that it comes in waves. And the first wave was the Chumba and the offshore guys. And these guys are making money, pulling billions of dollars out of the United States without any regulation, flowing into Australia. And then all of a sudden you have the tier 2, the second wave of these guys, which are the investors, all this new sports betting things, the Chris Groves and the Seth Shores and the Jim Murrens and, and people like this who are now going, oh, something's going on here. We're the second wave. We're going to come in. They've set up Fliff. They set up these other companies. They're sucking the money out of California. And then what I saw was the third wave. I saw all the bottom feeders are like going, oh my God, let's come in and let's get in. Now, I think what's important, and I've given this a lot of thought, we're not saying that you can't come into California eventually. We're saying you have to go through the tribes. So what they're doing right now is they're going through gambling, and they're not doing with tribal partnerships, a violation of the tribal exclusivity. And that's where they're going to get in trouble. That is where the tribes have been very adamant that this is our territory, and we will fight anyone, anytime, any place, anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we just showed that with the big sports betting companies, with the DraftKings and FanDuels of the world. Like, you might be a $1 billion corporation, but if you want to come into California, it begins and ends with tribes, period. I keep saying it over and over again. And I think some of them are finally hearing it and actually listening. But these guys will figure that out too. And this time, like, this came up, DFS first came up, I think, in 2015. There was a bill that was run by some legislators. We were able to get it killed. And, probably partly on the tribes. We thought that was the end of it. We didn't give it that final kind of death blow. This time, whatever's the outcome, it will be final. There will not be a second bite of the apple after this.
You know,
How you gonna get a bite of the apple when you have no teeth? You know what I mean?
well,
I thought they were vampires. I thought they came with
yeah.
teeth.
Well, I could punch pretty
Generate.
hard, man.
But James, I mean, on a federal level, you know, these past 15, 20 years, we've been telling folks this is going to roll out on, you know, a lot of the online gambling and sports betting is going to roll out state by state. And we've seen limited incursions by congressmen and senators and at the federal level to try to set up frameworks or rein any of this in. You know, now we have this SAFE Act that's been introduced. And, you know, I've sat down and, you know, we've read it, we've gone over it. We sent out a messaging to our tribes. You know, it's generally not a bad thing. But it is a voluntary program that the state AG will have to opt into. But, you know, what do you think about, you know, you've got a big Senate race out there. Adam Schiff is running. What do you think about it? Do we need to re-engage maybe at a federal level and at least get some rules of entry? You know, people are just, like you said, Victor, they're just coming in and they pick a state and then, you know, focus on that. And then if they have to get out of there, they get out of there and go to another state. It really was what FanDuel and DraftKings were doing. And then next thing you know, they're ubiquitous during sporting events with their advertising.
Yeah.
We're seeing it again. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, it's a tough deal because I know Congress is hard to act on this, and then they always make things worse by wanting to amend IGRA or something else. But what do you think?
Yeah, and that's where I was going. I was like, on its own, if it's just that piece, I think we could support it. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of it that's really good because I've gone through it as well. There's some pieces that we might need modifications to, but again, then you have to have your AG opt into it so that state is following the SAFE Act. But then at the same time, I'm always concerned as soon as tribal gaming comes up that someone's going to look over at IGRA and start wanting to, well, should we just put this in here? Should it be an amendment to IGRA? Should we open it up and look at it? And it just gets complicated for, obviously, this is your wheelhouse, you know, for a number of reasons. Anytime the idea of amending IGRA comes up outside of like technical amendments.
Right.
But if we could keep it segmented alone, I think it would just benefit us because we would know like the framework for entry. And then if it comes to regulation and all that, we can, you know, handle that at each individual state level with those tribes. But yeah, having that overarching at least kind of checklist that they have to go through I think would be nothing but beneficial for us. And I think it'd keep a lot of especially the smaller bottom feeders out from even being able to enter the market because they wouldn't be able to satisfy all of that.
Right. And Victor, you know, part of what's caught up in all this too is artificial intelligence. And, you know, I know we're going to focus more on that. Definitely.
Listen, I was in a room the other day. I saw no intelligence whatsoever. Well, I saw the opposite the other day.
Human intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah. What happens when intelligence is in a vacuum? That's where I was at. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the point being, AI can collect and discern and disseminate information, and it's just, even if you just recently read about what some more of the tech companies are saying about how AI, it almost seems like every 6 months they're expanding and getting better at just a phenomenal rate. If anyone uses ChatGPT-4, you know, you can already, it's way better than it was a year and a half ago. You know, it can talk to you now and be interactive. And, but the part of what I'm bringing that up is because, you know, the SAFE Act has provisions in there about how much information and that you can take from your customers and turn it around and market to you individually, which, you know, start getting the problem gambling issues and everything of that nature. And as I'm a FanDuel customer, I'll admit it on this thing. I think it's a good app and everything. But, you know, I open it up, especially closer to football weekend, and it's clear that they're just targeting my betting patterns. And it's like, it's almost laughable. It's like, you go down this road. I mean, you're gonna, and the UK already went down that road, right? That's why they had the white paper. They had literal construction workers on their lunch just had to go in there and bet on games or do whatever they were doing. That's why I think, maybe the SAFE Act is something that needs to not be optional. Maybe the federal government has got to start stepping up. For sure, we want the NIGC to start raising alarm bells. I'm sure that the regional NIGC offices see a lot of this faster and quicker than anybody because they're on the ground. And, James, we have our gaming subcommittee at NCAI in 2 weeks in Vegas, and we'll try to bring it up with the NIGC there. But this is an issue that I think we're going to have to tackle. I don't know if our mantra of tribes in each state need to tackle this. I'm with you. We'll reach out to the different gaming associations in each state and start trying to coordinate this. And maybe, just maybe, I know Kamala didn't do a lot in California when she was Attorney General, but if she can get in and get an Attorney General that takes this seriously, that's really all we need to just rein some of this in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to try to be in attendance at NCAI as well. So it'd be great to see, starting to kind of get that group together and start getting those messages out there to get those different tribes and different states working together. Oh yeah,
they're aware. My cousin and I have been talking. He's very aware of this, and I've sent him some of my responses, and he says I've been very measured compared to some of the other things he's seen. So coming from my cousin, but by the way, and we're talking about two issues here. It isn't just sweepstakes gambling. We're talking about DFS 2.0, and what is DFS 2.0? You guys tell me. I don't gamble. What is? Listen, I know what it is. I know technical. I know the. By the way, I apologize. I have the flu. I caught the flu from being on the road for too long. But we're having two issues. And now outside, I will say that the DFS people have reached out, and 2.0, the prize picks people, and they're saying, hey, listen, what can we do? We'd like to team up with tribes. And, the sweepstake guys did the same thing, but they're here already taking money. So to me, that is a transgression against the tribes to come in after the fact and look for permission while you're already here taking money out of California. No. That's not how it works. You're not going to get permission. So I agree, James, that, we could work with the Attorney General, but I think we have to think bigger than that. I think maybe, we have to change it at with the legislature. Look at what happened in Michigan. One of the things in our conversation at G2E with the gaming associations was, I asked Rebecca George, do you have this problem in Washington? And she said, no, we don't, because we have passed legislation in Washington that forbids this type of stuff. So, we don't want to create legislations that's going to create roadblocks, but we want to make sure that we protect our flanks too, because these guys
don't. Yeah, and honestly, California tribes and Sinai, we've had maybe the most successful past 2 years legislatively that we've ever had. Going back to Prop 5, Prop 1A, like we had the card room moratorium. We were successful in getting done legislatively the end of last session. This session, we did an SDF bill, which got 80+ million refunded to tribes in their regulatory costs. We just got SB 549, which will hopefully once and for all finally put into the court the question of the legality of the games the card rooms are operating in California. So legislatively, it's something that we could definitely tackle. Like, we have the momentum, we have that kind of unity that we've really been working on. It's been so complicated, and I'll never forget Andy Plato's reaction from Minnesota Indian Gaming when I mentioned that we have 52 member tribes of Sinaiga. And he just paused and leaned over. He's like, 52? Because there's 5 tribes in Minnesota?
Yeah, like 14, total? Something like that. Yeah,
and I think there's 5 in their gaming association. So he was he couldn't believe it. He's like, 52? He's like, how do you do anything?
Well,
carefully.
Careful. Well, listen, James, you do an amazing job, in your leadership in Sinaiga. It's just really incredible. And, because you have incredible tribes in California too, you have some leadership that I think is the envy of the world. I would say the world,
that's what I always tell people. I was like, I'm in the front of it, but I was like, really, it's all those leaders who come to all the meetings, who are willing to have those tough conversations, who are willing to listen to the other side. They're really the ones who are spearheading all this work. And really, I just get to be the tip of the spear. You know, I get to be the voice to advocate on their behalf. But really, as you mentioned, we have such amazing tribal leaders here in California, including your cousin, who, even though I tease him and call him El Presidente, he's still, you know, chairman of the California tribe and does amazing work. And so
I don't look him in the eyes anymore when I see him. I can't look him in the eye.
there's like an aura around him now.
He's a big deal, man.
Yeah, but seriously, I mean, there's a lot of leadership who has a lot of long tenure terms. So they've seen all of these different battles. They've been through all of it. So getting their knowledge, their experience, and then the new generation of leaders who are approaching things a little bit differently as far as tech, as far as sovereignty, you know, have a different understanding of it. It's a really interesting mix now in California. And I think, you know, we're primed for, you know, for anything, for fights, for advocating
for this fight.
Oh yeah, for this fight in particular, absolutely. Because this one, they have no leg to stand on. They have nothing to stand on. You know, like it is illegal. It's unregulated. It should put out money laundering. You know, like I don't want to make any claims yet, but it's not pretty. And so yeah, we'll be ready. And the California leadership's primed and ready to go on this one, just like we were on sports betting and are still on sports betting.
Well, you know, I think the big argument here is for them is like the tribes aren't moving, so we're going to do it. You know, I mean, they know they're supposed to do it with working with the tribes. So now they're working backwards, looking to get tribes. But if the tribes aren't ready to go online, they need to sit on the sidelines and wait with everybody else. You know, we got into that big fight with the SBA and FanDuel and DraftKings so that they would be on the sidelines and wait until we figured it out. So these are people that have said to the tribes, that have spit in the face of the California tribes and said, you know what, we're going to do it anyhow. And that's what I heard in Las Vegas. If you can stop us, go ahead, but we're going to do it anyhow. So to me, it was like, I mean, they were just so arrogant about it. And, you know, I think it's time that the tribes rose up and addressed this issue in a very extreme and profound reaction. You know what I mean? Because that's the only thing they understand. Now, the other thing is that they're thumping their chest to the investors on Wall Street. This is what we're going to do. We have millions of downloads now. We're going to take this industry. When it's legalized, we're going to come in and suck all the oxygen out of the air, invest this right now. But you know what? They're young enough to still smother in the cave, smother them in the crib. And that's exactly what we're going to do. You know what I mean? Because this is not going to happen on our watch. You know, this is what we're here for, James, you know, is to protect tribal sovereignty.
100%, 100%.
So Jason, do you have questions? Because I didn't let the audience have questions.
Oh yeah. Well, let's see what the audience has to say.
No. They can write their emails. I turned it off.
Oh, you turned it off?
Yeah, I did. I turned it off. I don't want to hear from anybody. I want to have this as a statement, as a proclamation,
Right.
and not as a Q&A, not, you know, that this is what's coming down the road.
Right.
So, you know, maybe next week with Jeremy Kuden, I don't know. That'll be
Yeah.
interesting with Jeremy. Jeremy,
Right.
do you want to go under fire? That would be fun. That will be fun. But, you know, but listen, I think the point here is that, listen, we are not going into this alone. We are not going into this alone. The AGA is now involved. The SBA is now involved. I got a really informative text from someone saying that a tribal gaming commission could issue a notice of violation against these companies and force the NIGC to get involved.
Right.
So there are many ways for us to address this issue, and it's brand new. It's right on our platter. We didn't recognize the existential threat while it was happening, but we recognize it now.
Mhm.
You know, we are awake. We are pointed in that right direction. So,
Well, James, and I
Go ahead.
want us to, you know, and this is again, we'll coordinate with everybody, but you know, every time we get a new influx of gaming entrepreneurs, if you want to call these guys entrepreneurs, yeah, he doesn't, but
parasites.
there's always you know, they don't understand or want to understand tribal exclusivity. And I still think there's a lot of existing corporations, commercial
Mhm.
corporate, that would just like to see it go away, and they just think it's wrong. And we've seen from various lawsuits that, they're attacking it in federal courts as a race-based program. But that's got to be part of our messaging is, this exclusivity, this isn't Standard Oil, this isn't Ma Bell, tribes paid for this, negotiated for this, and we paid for it in so many ways, going back to the original treaties, to the way that the states treated tribes for hundreds of years, or didn't treat tribes. They didn't care anything about California tribes until you guys started getting gaming. They were fine with just leaving tribes in the worst parts of the state and just ignoring them, even though they were PL 280. So this is a long time coming, and we've got to, get people to recognize the history behind it and the reasoning behind it. And I think that's always got to be forefront in the messaging, and why tribes, if a state or the federal government isn't going to start to crack down on some of this, we have our own governments, and we'll crack down on it and see what.
Yeah, and we've had to follow a similar path with the card rooms. That we've been advocating for years that they're operating illegally in violation of our exclusivity, and AGs, the state, no one's taken action. So the tribes have had to find the right path forward to finally bring resolution to that, and we're hopefully going to get there this next year. But this is a similar thing, and I think you nailed it on the head in the very beginning of your statement when you talked about exclusivity. They understand tribal exclusivity. They don't like tribal exclusivity, and that's the portion of it. That's why they're trying to either find their way around it, flat out ignore it. I'm sure they and a lot of other people would love for it to go away, but that's the main thing. They understand it. They know what they're doing. They just don't care. They don't respect it. They don't respect sovereignty.
And you know what, James? And the big slap in the face is that we know these people. We know who they are. They shake our hands. They smile in our faces. And this is a betrayal of the highest order. I feel absolutely betrayed. And I think, the people who are taking money in California, I think there should be some type of penalty. I think they should be put in a penalty box and not allowed when we legalize the marketplace, and not allowed to come to the marketplace. I don't know how that works. A democracy, laws, and stuff like that. But you know what? There's many ways to skin a cat. You know what I mean? And there's a lot smarter people than me working on it, and I just so happen to be friends with them. So when this is done, I believe there should be a penalty for companies like Spliff, that's funny. Fliff and VGW and Chumba and the ones, and they're going to talk about the money going out to Australia. But listen, I'm talking about the money going into Las Vegas. I'm talking about these Vegas, the people that I saw in these vampire parties, you know what I mean, that are coming in to suck our future away, to take that revenue out of California. And we have exclusivity. If you want to come to, you need to team up with the tribes. And if they're not ready, then you need to wait. You know what I mean? So these are people that don't respect it, don't honor it. And these are people without honor. You know what I mean? So I think that we should, well, James, you unite. Listen, brother, I have a lot more information coming down the pike. I am not done by a mile, so listen, we've been at this for 26 minutes, 39, 40 minutes, and, we could keep beating up over this, but I think, we've kind of said we've had our say, and, what message would you like to send to the gaming industry and the importance of preserving about tribal gaming exclusivity in California, James? How would you like to end this?
I'd like to end it with how I end a lot of the speaking opportunities I have, which is tribes are the operators in California. Tribes exclusivity in California. Any new entry of gaming into California begins and ends with tribes. That's it. That's the reality of how gaming operates in California. You may not like it, but that's the reality. And you will respect it. You may not do it right now, but you will respect it at the end of the day.
I should start wearing a ring so they could kiss it off.
And I think I want to take out of this too. Every once in a while you got to go to a vampire party so that you're aware of what the other side's doing.
Oh man, I swear to God. I mean, I just had this realization in the middle of it of just all these, and there was good people there too, people that I respected and admired, and in the middle of all these vampires, and I got out right before the blood started coming out of the fountains. You know what I mean? I got out of there, so it was illuminating, and I'll tell you. The worst part for the industry is I had a 3.5 hour drive by myself to just think about it, contemplate, and I think the industry should chip in and stick me on an airplane. The last thing this industry needs is me to be having 3.5 hours to think. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what it was, man. I got home and I slept on it, and I woke up in the morning and chose violence. I put on Twitter and I chose violence, and I choose. This is how it has to, because these people don't understand. So anyhow, listen, we appreciate everybody in the industry for coming in. I know this is kind of a dramatic, but this is an issue that we see as existential, not just to California, but the rest of Indian country, to the gaming industry, to the commercial gaming industry. And over the next 5 weeks, we will have conversations. Next week, we have Jeremy Kuden in the SBA, and he will be my guest, and we'll be talking it from their point of view too. So, James, thank you so
Thank you,
much for
James.
coming, sitting in an airport. You're such a
Yeah.
stud.
Awesome.
That's leadership, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you,
Jason,
Victor.
thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Jason.
I
I appreciate
apologize
it.
for dropping this on you without telling you, but as you can see, that it's a big issue and stuff like
Right.
that. And to everybody else, listen, thank you very much. We'll see you next week with Jeremy Kuden. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.